Why was Leonard Bernstein, a beloved musical genius who thrived within the social fabric of New York City, a terrible husband and father? Perhaps the answer lies in his relationship with his own father. For example, on Wikipedia it states that his father, Sam, was initially opposed to young Leonard's interest in music and attempted to discourage his son's interest by refusing to pay for his piano lessons. His struggling relationship with his father, and the way that he responded by having one with music instead, lines up pretty well with the adulterating, neglectful husband and father that Bradley Cooper portrays him as in the movie Maestro. But even so, Maestro does not seem to be interested in the question of how Leonard Bernstein ever came to be that way. Instead, the timeline of the story in Maestro starts pretty deep in Bernstein's career, when he's already started to become relatively well known in New York.
I think that you just need to, in some way, do justice to seeing how he came to music and how he kind of rose through the whatever. Because the first scene is when he has to, like, guest conduct the New York Phil, right? And already he's, like, up and coming, right? This is, like, a big gig that he got. There's so many years of, like, loving music and wrestling with it and, like, whatever that come before that moment.
That's Nadira. She's a current Yale student and a longtime flutist. Flautist? Huh? How do I not know how to say that? She started flute in a special music school for elementary schoolers and has been playing with a ton of talent since. You could call her a child prodigy. Last year, she soloed with the Yale Symphony Orchestra when they went on tour to Mexico, and she's somebody in my life who not only knows the most about classical music, but also has the strongest feelings about Maestro. So I knew she had to be in this video.
That is a staple of, I think, a lot of biopics is the moment of, like, the lighting of the fire.
Yeah.
Of, like, their passion. And I don't know that we ever got that.
That's Pablo, whose entire family spans generations of professional musicians across various instruments. He knows the world of classical music incredibly well, and he's also a very talented filmmaker. The two of us and several others from Yale formed a film collective during the COVID pandemic, and we've collaborated many times since. He's a perfect person to get a unique perspective about this film.
Right, why did they call him? What was it about him and what he had done before that made them call him for that gig? Because that's a last minute, that's a big deal gig to get. And that's his claim, and that's his claim to fame is, like, that's how he got discovered, whatever. Right. Like, at the stage that I personally am in my, like, career as a musician, that's, like, way before whatever, the big break, the type of big break that he got. But there's still, like, 17 years of playing that are super important. But the beginning, at least, the seeds of it, where did he come from? Like, I think that's super important.
Maybe Bradley Cooper will watch this YouTube video and get a huge ego check, like, hey man.
Otherwise, this movie could be about any guy.
Well, the alternative is, like, you start later in life, but there's just a more well-rounded depiction of him as a classical musician. Well, duh. I say that very simply, but I think that's probably one of the hardest things to do in film is to capture the spirit and essence of somebody like a musician. Let's just say that some biopics have struggled with that.
Listen, Elvis used Doja Cat music, which I just thought was crazy when you have... Yes. The fact that they use his music, I think, is good.
I assume that when Bradley Cooper and Josh Singer wrote the script, they had full intention of capturing him in his entirety, both personally and musically. Still, they explicitly chose to focus on his family life. That decision feels embedded in every moment in the film. They make this choice as if it were a choice. As if Leonard Bernstein had the choice to separate the personal and the creative, the sacred and the divine when he was alive. Bernstein's personhood consisted of being a conductor, husband, composer, and father all at once. These were all unforgivingly and incessantly linked and interwoven for him always when he existed. But there is such a massive fall-off in the portrayal of Bernstein the musician in Maestro. And so no wonder the portrayal as a whole has seemed shallow and uninteresting to both audiences and the Academy.
It's just so ironic. I would look at everyone, even my own children, with such pity because of their longing for his attention. It was sort of a banner I wore so proudly. I don't need. Look at me now.
You can always develop the context of who somebody is by structuring characters around them and then having them talk about who that person is to them. Like in this scene, literally, Carey Mulligan is talking about who Leonard Bernstein was as a partner and as a father. We are just being told who he is.
I will say I do find it compelling when you are informed of a character based on how other characters react. So for me, it did a lot that there was this distress from Felicia. I think she expressed it very well in that scene as well. The problem is when it's just that. I wanted so badly to see more of he's writing his piece at this summer house or whatnot. he needs to work on it, and now this is when we got to talk about it. Felicia basically says, and she's like, no, you can go.
But we were having.
No.
No, I'm sorry. I thought we were finished.
No, I know you're busy.
And he's like, are you sure? And she's like, yes.
I'm not busy. I'm desperate to finish this.
Well, then do it, darling. I'm not stopping you. Do it.
That interaction was great. I thought it should have been longer. Here's the potential to put the music up against the relationships. Each of these things is incredibly important to Leonard, and how it pulls him in each direction, I think, is very compelling.
One of the reasons I'm so frustrated with just the sheer lack of presence of classical music in the portrayal of Bernstein as a person is the fact that I was a classical musician myself. I don't play anymore. I've more or less made a full transition to film now, but it made up such a core part of my identity for so long. After some reflection, I realized that my progression with classical music is quite the opposite of Bernstein's. I began playing the piano at 8 years old, very close to when Lenny started. But rather than my parents being opposed, it was exactly the opposite. My parents were the reason I started in the first place. I mean, come on, I was a tiny little Chinese boy. You think I had any autonomy over my extracurriculars? And no, I wasn't some multi-talented musical godsend like teenage Leonard Bernstein. My violin teacher literally told me straight up that I didn't practice enough, and switching to the viola would help with college applications because it's less competitive than violin. I stopped in college, and yes, I went to the one that has a relationship with Lenny's own alma mater, and moved away from music. And then it all tragically came to an end during Thanksgiving break of my junior year. The house that I was living in off campus got robbed, and my viola was stolen, and it was never recovered. Yeah, man, I wish I was joking. My friend Jonathan, who was living with me at the time, also had his viola stolen, but he also grew up playing the clarinet.
I'm really interested in the question of like, what is the function of classical music in society? How does the finance and education aspect of all of it add to our culture? And I think, right, like Bernstein is the figure to explore that question through. So I think that was one of my big disappointments with the movie. And my understanding is that the Bernstein kids had a large role in the making of the film. Clearly, they're like pretty upset about like, oh, our dad wasn't around and he was hitting on all the students and we were right there and he was lying to us and there are all these problems with.
So they were really involved.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Probably what went through Bradley Cooper's head is, in order to make sure that the kids also feel like they'll give me their life rights, I'll make this about how their father wronged them.
It wouldn't surprise me if, I don't know this, if they had more music things, and then because they want to make a Hollywood movie, Hollywood just loves love and doesn't love art as much, and so they just choose to go that route.
There's that scene at the end where they almost do that. It's like him at Tanglewood.
Where he's like dancing with the boy.
Yeah.
And what are we supposed to say? So we're supposed to be like, Predator? Like, is that like the last scene? It's like, what are we getting?
I also felt quite disturbed, but that's kind of how things were back then.
No.
Just like
I buy it. No,
very-
like, I know musicians who have been banned from going to places like Tanglewood because of shit like that.
I think the bigger issue is we finally had a moment, right, where it was just him interacting with another musician
Right.
in a very candid, honest way. Leonard Bernstein being a musician with other musicians in the way that he was a musician.
We finally get the music bit.
Right, it wasn't.
And then it ends up being about sex anyway.
The worst part of the fact that Bradley Cooper didn't choose to equalize his family drama about Leonard Bernstein with the musical side of Leonard's life and something that pokes a little deeper at the spirit of classical music is the fact that all of the buzz and all of the promotional material that Maestro themselves even made is about the classical music part. Look at TikTok, look at YouTube, look at how much people are enjoying the fact that this kind of representation is out there, and it could have been so much more.
100-piece chorus, more than 100 musicians playing various
Who the
instruments.
fuck is that guy? That's not Bradley
It's
Cooper.
That's
really
Yannick.
complex.
Alright, whatever.
It requires years
You know,
of
I
experience,
conducted me once.
or also being fearless.
This guy?
Yeah.
Bradley
That
went
guy?
through
Yeah.
What the fuck?
He's the
You're a nerd.
Yo, what the heck?
He's the
years for that.
music director of the Philadelphia.
That's gonna make you look so qualified for people.
I'm deadass. When I was at Juilliard.
Extraordinary feat to have been able. What we see in the film is that beautiful final take, and all the musicians could feel something happened. It's as if Lenny had just been there.
How much they pay him to say that, do you think?
I don't know. it's hard to internalize the physicality of having conducted all your life and have that translate properly on screen. I don't think for most people it matters. Like, all the actions were there, but the familiarity and the second nature of it.
So that was the behind the scenes. I believe this is the actual thing. Here we go.
I mean, amazing scene.
I know, this is my favorite. This is like my favorite
This
scene.
brought the entire thing up just by another
exactly.
rating.
Yeah.
I know. This was an entire letterbox, maybe even
Wait, I
1.5
can't see.
stars.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This is my favorite. She's so funny. Wait, look at this. I love her. There's like,
She's into it.
you know, there's like memes about her on the classical music TikTok.
Really?
Yes, because she's hilarious.
Yeah, you can see her head kind of wobbling.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was it.
No way.
Because Netflix likes to give you that little.
Well,
little
just pull up the
tease.
Mahler scene on Netflix.
I don't have Netflix.
I have Netflix.
Well, we are rolling. From what I've seen of Leonard, it's much looser.
Okay, yeah. Let me actually just pull up. This is Mahler 2.
There's every beat. You can see like every beat like in him, like in terms of like the way that he like moves his whole body is like, yeah, he's so good.
So good.
Like his feet are next to each other. Right?
Yeah.
And-
Planted.
They should just cast the real Leonard Bernstein.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were doing.
Right, yeah.
At least in Leonard's conducting, it's the initial impulse, and then the rest is like auto, and it's loose. And with Bradley Cooper, it feels like he's going through all the entire motions.
When I see Leonard Bernstein do that, it feels like he's the one pushing the music out. Whereas with Bradley Cooper, it looks like he's like at a rave reacting to music that's happening in front of him. You know what I mean?
Yes, so like
I see where you're coming from.
yeah, because Leonard Bernstein, different parts of his body are doing different beats. But when every single beat is represented with like the whole of his body, like he's got the orchestra. And I think that like that's something that's very, very, very difficult to replicate.
Your truth is a fucking lie! It sucks up all the energy in every room and gives the rest of us zero opportunity to live or even breathe as our true selves, and saps the rest of us of any kind of bravery or strength.
That was the most successful line in the movie for me. I felt that in his performance, that he was sucking everything out of the room. But the first hour is really just him meeting this woman and kind of watching their relationship progress, but not really with any specificity. There's so many just like huge time jumps. From the get-go, it's like, boom, already. We have seen none of their relationship really past them meeting. And already they're hinting at the fact that he's being unfaithful. But then where's the part where we care?
I really cared when she got sick, because it's so much about the relationship and how he neglects it. But this is the relationship, and he tends to it. When they first get the news, I think, and he's holding her like that, I had to pause it. I was like, I like that for him. I tried to screenshot it. Netflix was, all the black. I couldn't screenshot it.
I agree that I think that it doesn't come like before that point, and I think that for me was like that was a huge sticking point, because it's like, okay, fine, you're gonna make a movie about Leonard Bernstein and you're not gonna talk about the music, like whatever, like that I have big beef with that, but it's like, okay, but fine, that's my first beef, fine, I can concede you really want to focus on Leonard Bernstein's relationship, fine, but then you don't even care about that for so long, you don't even get an insight into it, you just have these like beautiful shots of like God knows what. You have these characters that come in. I know who they are because they say their first names, and I know who they are because of my background in classical music. You don't get anything. You just kind of get this like broad, vague view of their relationship. And it's like, okay, so you wanted to make a movie about Leonard Bernstein's relationship, make me understand Leonard Bernstein's relationship, and I still didn't. And so then it was just sort of like, okay, so then why did you make this movie? And you only get that stuff, the intimacy, the vulnerability, the care, the tenderness, the whatever. You get that kind of all at the end. That's when the stuff happens. That's when you're sad. That's when you feel things. Like, but before that, I was just like, what are we doing? Like, what is this?
I mean, the thing about making a film about any kind of like romantic relationship, the hardest part to write is when they meet, and the first initial like waffling of like getting to know each other. When he meets her, right, it's at a party and they sort of run off and they go to this like theater that she's at and all this stuff. And I think he tries to make it like really artsy and sort of cute. But that's not how you approach depth in a meeting. Like, you have to showcase where these people were before they met, and you have to have some level of understanding of who these people are. That's when those things can kind of add depth to just like kind of the surface level things that they're saying.
Yeah, because then you would have to get into the music, and we can't do that in this movie, right?
I'm super grateful to Jonathan, Nadira, and Pablo for helping me out. Thank you so much for watching. Shout out classical music, baby.